Gabe, the Jets were like his life, his whole life.
I became a dancing Gabe day one 20 years ago.
One day, I guess he couldn't help himself. He got so excited, he started dancing. So after every game, the media would say, well, there goes our dancing Gabe. He counted himself like part of the team, and it was like his job to be at every game.
When my old brother and myself went to the AFCO Cup 1978, when Anders and Hall played their final game here at the old Winnipeg Arena, 1978. I remember the WHA, Bobby Hall, Alf, Anders, Joe Daly, Holy Goalie, the three-time AFCO Cup winning teams. That was a magical, in the 70s, that was a magical decade.
1972, Dennis Murphy and some other Americans decided they should start another professional hockey league to rival the NHL. Ben Hatskin, who was a wealthy Winnipeg businessman, bought a franchise, one of the first franchises in the league in 1972, named it the Winnipeg Jets. I'm told after the New York Jets football team, which he loved, that's where the name originated. And the WHA was launched.
I guess it goes back to the year of 1971-72 when I was playing in Detroit. I got a call from Mr. Billy Robinson, who was the director of player personnel for the Winnipeg Jets, telling me about the prospect of a team starting up in Winnipeg and a league starting up being called the WHA. It was a gamble on my part, it was a gamble on everybody's part, but I felt confident, and certainly more confident after we signed Bobby Hull.
If you want to get people on board, make a splash. Don't just kind of blasé way throw it out there and ask them to come. I mean, they did the perfect thing at the beginning. They grabbed Bobby Hull.
June 27th, 1972 was a really special day for hockey in Winnipeg, and for me. We had never had professional hockey in Winnipeg. Here was this superstar from the NHL coming to sign a contract with the Winnipeg Jets.
Bobby Hull really didn't want to come here, but he called Ben's bluff basically and said, you give me the $1 million, I'll be there. Nobody thought Ben Hatskin could pull that off.
In this book, it's got a picture of Portage and Maine right over there in 1972, June 27th. My ex-wife and I were standing just feet away from Bobby and Benny Hatskin. It was amazing.
Just the euphoria among hockey fans in Winnipeg was like, you gotta be kidding, we got Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull?
We stole Bobby Hull from the Blackhawks. We gave the NHL sort of a punch in the gut and put ourselves on the map. And then after that, the other thing they did was win.
That era, that WHA Winnipeg Jets was one of the most exciting teams I ever saw. And I remember hearing NHL people saying that team could have been a Stanley Cup contender. They were that good.
The Jets brought on a whole different attitude of playing the game, moving the puck in the feet. They could cycle, they could skate, they could pass, they had talent.
We were entertaining, we were competitive, we won, and that's the bottom line.
It was kind of a well-kept secret. We in Winnipeg knew how good it was, and we cherished the fact that we had these great players and this great style of hockey in our backyard. And I think we always felt it's kind of too bad the rest of the world doesn't know what's going on here.
Much after Bobby came into the league, that we started to bring in the Europeans, and that was the big switch as far as our team went, and I think we created something for the future of hockey. That's when it really became a fever in Winnipeg. Yes, you can bring in Europeans, and yes, you can be competitive with them. And of course, the fact that we went to 5 finals in 7 years and won 3 championships certainly didn't hurt.
They were the first ever club team to beat the Soviet national team. They never get credit for that. And that really ticks me off, because you listen to a Habs fan, who, you know, not very fond of at the best of times. They call it the game of the century, the year Red Army tied Montreal 3-3. Red Army, more or less, if you want to make an analogy, is a Soviet national team's farm team. Well, we beat the national team, but Montreal ties Red Army, and they call that the game of the century.
Some of the greatest names in Russian hockey were on that team. They came here and played the Jets in an exhibition game, and the Jets won 5-3. And Hall, Hedberg, and Nielsen just dazzled, and the building was full, and I can still remember. It was just incredible.
As a hometown boy, playing with those types of guys and having the success we had as an organization was just really, really enjoyable for me. I mean, many people wonder whether you do the right things in life and the changes you make. I never ever regretted leaving the National Hockey League to come home to play. And I, as a Winnipegger, was certainly very proud of the fact that I could play on that team.
Okay, well, this is my basement where I keep all my Jets treasures. Well, it started in the 70s. After my first game, I loved it so much, and my mom got season tickets the following year for the 77-78 season. Up until that point, now it sounds a little deep, but I was a very weak student, and I was way below grade level with reading. At grade 5, I failed everything in November. The Russians were in town that night, and my mom said, "You're not going to the game tonight." And I had a big, massive fit. But within 2 years, I was an honor student, because that is what the Jets meant to me. The locker stalls my wife made for me. A few years ago, I went on a trip with my kids. I came back, and she made me these stalls. And within all the stalls are every single jersey the Jets ever wore in their existence from 72 to 96. Picture there, that I got this year on the day of my very first Jet game in March 17th, 1976. It's my 8th birthday. I went and saw the Jets play the Calgary Cowboys. Jets won 3-2. Everyone who knows me after 5 minutes knows I'm a diehard Jets fan. A friend of mine is met a few times. I forgot my name. He just calls me Jet Boy. Which is fine.
Greg is a friend of mine from Transcona now. I just think it's great, you know, for somebody to be so passionate, you know, about the game like that. You know, some may not understand that it's just not a game to him, and to a lot of people, you know, it's almost a way of life.
The team the first 2 years in the NHL was just awful. I think they won 20 games the first year, and then the second year they won 9 games.
It was really interesting how people in Winnipeg treated that team. They knew they were devoid of talent relative to other clubs, and they knew that every game was a struggle. They admired the work ethic of the team. They just couldn't get the job done. You know, when the Winnipeg Jets went through that 30-game winless streak, I remember thinking, wow, nobody's had a job like I've got right now, doing the color for a team that never wins. And then when Willie Lindstrom scored a goal on December 23rd of 1980, to break that 30-game winless streak, and he did so against the Colorado Rockies with the Chicago Tribune was here, Sports Illustrated was here. Everybody sensed it would end at that time, and the Winnipeg Arena just erupted. You'd think we just won a Stanley Cup, and that's when you realized how close to the heart this hockey club was.
Win or lose, it was just going, and all day all you could think about was going to this Jets game. And if you weren't going, you listened to Kurt Keelback call the play-by-play while you played road hockey. You know, it was something else.
Lead pass, Kortnoff, a breakaway. Oh, by himself, Kortnoff. It's a big save by
called 2,400 games, give or take a few.
He was fantastic. Great serve, Essensa.
First time I broadcast a Winnipeg Jet game was the first NHL game I had ever seen. It was an exhibition game. It was between the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Rockies.
Kurt had a unique style. He had a very strong and unique voice.
Olison's long shot, and Evans goes in after it. Evans out front. Here's Sykes. He scores!
The games weren't all on television then as they are now, so radio was a real strong force in bringing Jets hockey to the fans.
Oh, I miss them a lot. It's something I'll never forget. Probably the best 17 years of my life.
Every time we got into a playoff series, we got matched up against either Edmonton or Calgary. And something like 5 out of 7 years, they were the Stanley Cup champs.
Randy Gillen, his first playoff goal.
It was tough being a player in those days because you knew you had to climb over that biggest hurdle right off the bat. And unfortunately for the fans, you know, we didn't have much success against Edmonton and Calgary in those days, and they went on to win Stanley Cups.
I can recall one game, and it was a playoff game, in which in the first period, the Winnipeg Jets outshot the Edmonton Oilers 22-7. All 22 shots were from the slot, or so it seemed. The score after one period was 3-0 Edmonton.
Glenn Sather had that great Edmonton Oilers team, and he has said more than once that he patterned that team after the style of play that the Winnipeg Jets of the WHA played.
People talk on and on about their favorite memory being the Dave Ellett double overtime goal, when that was, you know, a game 4 of a first round playoff series that we ended up losing. It's unbelievable that that being the best memories of the franchise were still just bring a tear to people's eye. And it was the passion and the noise the building, the Winnipeg Arena created back then.
Early shot, Steen almost had a breakaway. Allen butts it, go score!
There was nothing quite like the Winnipeg Arena at playoff time. The Whiteout was something that was created in Winnipeg. It started here, and it just became like a disease. I mean, it was just huge. Everybody was affected by it, and everybody felt it. And it was a feel, it was a look, and it was just a presence.
My first real memory of being part of the Whiteout was in 1990 when I was grade 7, and you know, seeing my dad with his, you know, white sweater that he dug out that was probably too tight for him, and, you know, me with my white t-shirt, and people with white paint all over their faces, and the atmosphere was just electric. So basically, my memories going to Jets games kind of started with a Whiteout.
It was actually Raccoon Carney who got the idea to have the first Whiteout. And I've still got the memo from him, and I remember looking at it thinking, they're not going to get everybody to dress in white.
The phenomena was born in April '85, and it was born of necessity. It's not like some great genius promotional thought. The Jets are coming home to host the Flames in the divisional semifinals. It was too short notice to put together a bunch of corporate sponsors, let alone get 15,000 t-shirts or something put together. So I tossed out the idea, why not have everybody wear white? Everybody has something white.
I got to the rink, it was like working in a blizzard.
To walk out of that tunnel and see that building completely white was absolutely amazing and electrifying. And the Winnipeg Arena was as loud as any arena in the National Hockey League during the playoffs in those whiteouts.
I think the Whiteout really brought fans together. It's the one thing that everybody was capable of doing. Not everybody can run out and buy an $80 jersey, but everybody's got a white t-shirt in their wardrobe somewhere. And so they would show up, and you could identify another Jets fan immediately wearing white. It was a rallying cry, visual rallying cry for your team, and everybody could participate.
The one thing that stood out is you lived it every day. Obviously, there is a lot of passion associated with hockey in Canada and certainly in this market. And you lived and died with every loss.
He was the eyes and ears of the dressing room. He had his finger on the pulse of every member of that team.
I was very passionate about being an equipment guy. I thought I was good at it, and watching those guys develop, the Keith Kachuks, the Alexei Zanlavs, Nikolai Habibulins, those type of guys that were not only good players but real good people.
Not a lot of people get to accomplish their dream in their hometown. It usually requires a move of some sort to a different city, province, or country. He, got that opportunity and, never looked back.
Attendance to me spoke very loudly about the support for the Jets and that passion. It kind of ebbed and flowed. I remember a Tuesday night home game, I believe it was against the Islanders one of those years, and it was an election night in Winnipeg. It was early in the season, but it was a midweek game, and there were 9,000 people at the arena. Well, okay, people were busy, maybe the weather was nice, but if we're that passionate about hockey, how do you explain, how 9,000 people show up in a 15,500 seat arena?
The negative people that would say the building was only half filled half the time, well, that's false. And what people seem to forget too is that we had a building with probably some of the worst sight lines in the NHL at the time, but we still average anywhere between 12 and 13,000 people a game in a horrible building. And let's not kid ourselves, the Jets are mostly a horrible team.
I grew up and was born and raised in Winnipeg and out in Transcona and played all my minor hockey there. We had a couple of outdoor rinks, the Pirates Community Club, which are now gone, I guess, much like the Winnipeg Arena. When I got drafted in '88, I was lucky to be a second-round pick by my hometown team, and I think they picked some Finnish guy in front of me, Solani or something like that in the first round. I'll have to look that up. But when I was growing up, I just loved going to those Jets games, and I didn't get to go to a lot of them throughout the year. I'm guessing maybe a handful, 4, 5, or 6, per year. But of course, Bobby Hull was. I remember going to see him play. It was just something that I loved. I was so lucky and fortunate to have the opportunity to do that, and lots of terrific memories from my childhood were going to Jets games.
I admittedly, although everyone seems to be at the Timo Solani record-breaking night, I wasn't there. It wasn't my turn for tickets, so I listened to Kurt Keelback tell me how it went.
Huff gets to center. His pass, trying to break through the middle, moving in. Pearson cut in at the net and was knocked down. Now Domi flips it high. Solani goes after it. Timo Solani breaks it. He scored!
Back in 1988, the Winnipeg Jets organization approached our advertising agency, which was Palmer Jarvis Advertising. Barry Shankro and his staff indicated to us that they wanted to do an update of the logo and the uniforms for the upcoming decade, essentially, of the 90s. There was a lot of talk and rumblings about the current one being outdated, and they wanted to do a freshen up. This is some of the initial designs that I toyed with. There were dozens and dozens of initial concepts that came out of the whole process. At this point, I was still toying with the whole idea of keeping, Winnipeg at the bottom as it stood. As you can see as well, the Jet was taking on all kinds of Star Trek kind of features at that point. Again, in an attempt to make it a little bit more modern and away from the jet airliner that existed in the logo at that time. There were a lot of people talking about the fact that they didn't want to have the logo changed, and this is from the fan side. Hearing that was sort of my inspiration to carry forward with a design that focused on updating the Jets logo. Don't mess with success was essentially the plan at that point.
It's a logo that just lives on. I tried to kind of redesign my own idea of what a Jets logo should look like. Whether they're the Jets when they eventually return or not remains to be seen. But it's that old Jets logo, whether it be the 80s or 90s one, that just resonates with people.
The beginning of the end for me was there was a plan to build an arena downtown, but it required some public participation, and our political leaders at the time, they weren't convinced that a new arena was going to help the team.
Every city where we went into, reporters asked us questions, what was happening with the franchise, where were we moving. So when you go through 2 years of that, it begins to wear on you a little bit.
The owners of the team spent as much time fighting with their partners as they did with the fans to get them to come out and support the team, and it became a very distasteful battle.
Probably the 2 years leading up to when the team was going to leave, there was a lot of reminders that it was a possibility. If the team left here, I'd become the ultimate American. I couldn't wait to get out of here if there was no NHL. Why would I possibly stay in Winnipeg?
It was a part of history, something I grew up with, and just to have it picked up and moved in one day was really, really tough to take.
We had a sort of a goodbye to the Jets at the Winnipeg Arena. The arena was packed. There were 15,000 people there. And when it was over, you could hear a pin drop. People left the building, never said a word. That's how sad that moment was. It was like a funeral. A very close member of the family had been lost.
That was very hard for me because Gabe was very upset at night. Lots of time I had to go talk to him, and I used to say, I'm going to pray really hard. We'll probably have another team. If we can't have that team, we'll have another one.
I was very heartbroken. I cried too, and it wasn't an easy ride for myself.
When something's important to you, you always want to keep it with you. It's the same thing as, I guess, losing a loved one. Just because they died doesn't mean you forget about them. And same thing, the Jets, when they left, I wasn't going to forget about them because it was a very, very important part of my life as a kid and young adult. And it was a valuable tool my mom used to keep me on the straight and narrow. And, that's not lost on me because I wasn't the easiest kid to deal with growing up. And the Jets, that was a hammer that she always had on me.
We had our big rally at the Forks. The people poured out their hearts and their piggy banks and their passion. They went to socials, they bought stuff, they went to auctions, they donated money left, right, and center.
We had kids coming in with piggy banks and nice elderly ladies handing us their cold, hard cash.
I remember the day that there was so much anticipation, and there was a big gathering in Portage and Main.
There was, 10,000 people down there hoping for someone to come out of the Richardson building with an announcement that, the Jets had been saved.
My recollection is that the city council actually voted unanimously, if not 13 or 14 to 1. The arena was approved, and we were going to spend the money on it, as big an investment as it was. But by that time, the problem wasn't just the arena, it was who was going to own the team and write the checks.
I recall vividly thinking we were going to catch a inside scoop of, who was going to make the announcement and what the plans were. Our team's going to be saved and a new arena's going up. We instead overheard, to our horror, that everything had failed.
As much as people had given and drained their pocketbooks, it was like the rug was yanked and it was all over.
And so the NHL, all they did was, they had no choice but to move on, and they did. It was more business than passion for them. It was a sad tale all around. It couldn't be fixed because there wasn't anyone here to fix it.
I remember how I felt when the team left, how devastating that was, and then it just didn't seem right to just abandon it. People wanted to see professional hockey in the city, had been accustomed to it for many, many years, dating back to the WHA days. And so it made sense, like, let's keep the market alive. Let's keep hockey alive.
I can remember standing doing laundry in the old dressing room with Stan Wilson, who was the other equipment guy with me, and somehow we got on the subject of going to Phoenix, and it just sort of came out, yeah, I'm not going to Phoenix, and his knees just about buckled. What do you mean you're not going? I said, you know what, just not for me. I said, I've got 4 kids under 4 and 3 in diapers, and it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for me to pick up and move. I was very comfortable starting with the Moose. I was comfortable with the people that were going to be involved, and I was excited and looking forward to it. When the Jets were here, the fans kept us on their toes. When the Jets left, in the early years of the Moose, it was us that I felt had to keep the fans on their toes, that hey, there's still hockey here, there's still professional hockey here. It's a different brand. We're working very hard and very diligently to build it. Give us a chance.
Because it wasn't the NHL, it wasn't good enough for a lot of people. When people put as much passion and effort into their job, I think you expect a similar outcome, and that just didn't occur.
Obviously a complete success is to see that Jetometer hit 100%, and our dream has been realized. But it's been incredible how time has, flown by here. So I can't believe it was 2003. When I look back now, I think I would have thought I was crazy too. When I look back, who in their right mind would think that could have happened back then? Something told me it could.
I think there were times when people thought that we were at odds with one another, and nothing could have been further from the truth. As I got to know Darren, I, admired what he was doing, and I think there was a point in time where he understood what it is we were doing, and it was completely congruent with what he had been thinking.
I know I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I heard that the Phoenix Coyotes were placed into bankruptcy, because to me, that took away the little chip of a stone that was stopping the big boulder from rolling down the hill. When that chip went away, the boulder started rolling.
Gary, let's just get right into it this afternoon, talking about the possible return of the NHL to Winnipeg.
If the NHL fails to close its sale in the city of Phoenix, this team will come to Winnipeg.
The NHL had to move a franchise. Well, we were kind of waiting there with our hands up, you know, pick me, pick me.
Over the last 15 years, like I say, you almost got used to the fact that we were just never going to have a team again.
We dealt with losing them. We can sure as hell deal with trying to get them back and failing. There's tens of thousands of people following JetsOwner.com every week. People aren't clicking on by mistake. It's because they're rehashing all these memories for a franchise that wasn't even around all that long in retrospect.
Here's somebody saying, I'm sick with anticipation. It's, that's what Winnipeggers have been feeling. If you were going to believe that this was going to happen, this was a great place to be, because you had people who were positive and who wanted to believe this was going to happen. It was almost like your life became that chat room.
The waiting was excruciating for dyed-in-the-wool hockey fans who wanted to believe it was going to happen, were convinced it was going to happen, but until it actually happened, you couldn't really, you know, embrace it the way you like to.
Well, over the years, I think people feel like they still have something to prove to the National Hockey League, to the rest of the world, that we are a good sports city, that we can support NHL hockey, and I think they've hung on to that with hopes that maybe one day it would return. We know it left other cities in North America and gone back, and I think we as Winnipeggers feel very strongly that we can support an NHL franchise if we're given the chance to do it all over.
Talking about the possible return of the NHL to Winnipeg.
Less than a week from now, there will be resolution in Phoenix.
You know, the conclusion of a saga that's gone on, obviously, for 15 years since the Winnipeg Jets left here for Phoenix.
If Phoenix does close and the Coyotes remain there, immediately this topic will switch to Atlanta.
We lived through heartbreak after heartbreak with the possibility of the Phoenix Coyotes relocating. So we kind of held on to that hope, and then it kept getting pulled away from us at the last minute. And as soon as the Phoenix situation was determined and that they'd stay there another year, we knew that Atlanta would be pursued very aggressively.
The circumstances surrounding our team leaving Winnipeg drove fans crazy. That was a heartbreak. From that moment, when the team was gone in '96, I don't think any of those people gave up hope that there was going to be a team coming back. And I think that listening to any of the broadcasters that leading up to you know recent months, even they were saying it's never going to happen. There's no way that we can have a team in this city. This market just won't bear it. And the fans got louder, and they started screaming, "We want our team back."
Over the past year, as the possibility became known, you could feel the sense of anticipation in the community. So we knew that people would be pretty revved up.
A lot of excited souls around Winnipeg and Manitoba hoping for the return of the NHL maybe as early as tomorrow. We can tell you right now, various sources, including True North Sports and Entertainment and the NHL, are saying the deal is not done. But I think pretty much everyone involved in the story knows that it really does seem like if it's not, it is merely a matter of time.
Who wants beer? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Welcome back.
The anticipation, there were a number of false starts, rumors. You know, here it comes maybe this week. Oh no, it's not. But you can't keep pushing people to the edge and not expect them at some point to have a release or a reaction.
Gonna build a roller coaster. You can ride it when you're older. Take it off those pretty buildings. in the north and down to Main Street.
Who wants to hate Vancouver? Who wants to hate the Flames again? Who wants to hate the Oilers again? Who wants to hate the Leafs again?
Darren refused to accept any suggestion that the NHL wasn't someday going to come back to Winnipeg. And good for him. It's turned out that he was right.
It's a new day, my friend. We're back.
Just another day in Winnipeg.
Yeah, not actually just another day in Winnipeg. At 11 a.m., there will be a press conference held by True North Sports and Entertainment downtown to announce the return of the NHL.
Today, on behalf of my family, our partner David Thompson, and our entire organization, I am excited beyond words to announce our purchase of the Atlanta Thrashers.
15 years in the making, 8 years for me with this campaign. Started it 8 years ago today. It's official. Gary Bettman's in town, Bill Daly's in town, David Thompson, Mark Shipman made it official. We have an NHL franchise. Almost a surreal out-of-body experience being in that conference, seeing it all unfold. And, you know, the story of the decade in Canada. The story of the decade.
In a sense, I guess you could say that True North, our city and our province, has received the call we've long since been waiting for.
Winnipeg, I think they have to choose a new name. I don't think it should go back to the Jets.
Oh, you know what? You got to bear with me. I have so much excitement in my voice. But I heard some speculation about Manitoba Polar Bears, and they'll have the powder blue jerseys.
I believe that it would be a mistake to call them anything but the Winnipeg Jets.
I think there's a very good chance that the team would not be called the Jets.
I think that name, to some people, represents a time when the franchise didn't work.
There's a lot of passion for the Jets. I understand that. But name them and they will come. That's what I've always said. Name them whatever you want. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is the National Hockey League is back in Winnipeg.
My Canadian first or my Winnipegger first? I'm not sure. But I love being a Winnipegger, and being a Jet fan, the word Winnipeg on the logo meant everything to me.
Everything that's good in my life that's happened to me has happened here. It's not like I've had to be a gypsy and move all over North America to get my opportunities. Every opportunity that's been provided to me has been provided here.
So excited that people are excited. I'm so excited that we got a team back in Winnipeg, because that was, as we've said, you know, like that was the seed that was planted a long time ago. But to have done it with people like Craig Heisinger and many, many others we started with, who believed enough in us in '96 and stuck with us, that's what I'm most proud of.
It's now my pleasure to introduce our Executive Vice President and General Manager, Mr. Kevin Cheveldayoff, who will make our first pick on behalf of the Winnipeg Jets.
When you love somebody or love something, it's not all a bed of roses all the time. And to me, that really tells the story of the Winnipeg Jets.